On July 5th, Jessa left Cincinnati for Israel on a Jewish Federation trip called the Israel-Poland Experience. She was going to Israel for a week, then meeting up with teenagers from Netanya, and then they were all going to travel to Poland together to see the concentration camps.
She was about maybe a week or two into the program when she started not to feel well, and was taken to one hospital in the north and discharged without a diagnosis, taken to another one the next day and admitted with what they saw was a liver problem.
When she arrived to Hadassah, it was clear that she was in big trouble. She was very ill, and during that first night here, while we were trying to resuscitate her, we were also advancing with the diagnosis, and the diagnosis of Wilson's disease.
Basically what Wilson's is the liver cannot process copper. Very often goes undiagnosed, very often there are no symptoms. Healthy one day, dying the next.
4:45 in the morning, all of a sudden, we saw on the monitor that her blood pressure dropped dramatically to about 60/30. Her hemoglobin had gone way down. She was just plummeting. All her systems were starting to go. And then it was like being in a movie, and we saw Hadassah at work.
She was taken to the intensive care unit, and intensive therapy was started. Despite that, she deteriorated. She was really on the verge of death.
Apart from the liver that was not functioning, her lungs were not functioning, her blood pressure was very low, her kidneys were not functioning, she had no urine whatsoever.
To be in the position of telling the family that they had to be prepared for the possibility she wouldn't make it and they didn't have time to get here was one of the most difficult moments in life.
For a brother to have to call a sister and say that, I mean, I can only imagine how difficult that phone call was. You know, it's every parent's worst nightmare.
Hadassah evidently developed some kind of special device that can predict how this is likely to play out, and based on that test that they did, they determined that her liver was not going to survive and she needed a transplant, and they told us that odds were that it would take 2 weeks to get a liver in Israel and she wouldn't live that long.
We did things in parallel. So one thing was keeping her alive, stabilizing her, and the other thing was finding the best way to get her a liver as soon as possible.
But it turns out that you have to be a citizen in order to qualify for a transplant in Israel. And the Hadassah staff got in touch with the Israeli government ministry responsible for this, and behind the scenes quietly made arrangements that Jessa would receive instant Israeli citizenship, given that she's Jewish, in order to qualify her for a transplant. There was compassion in the hospital, compassion in the government for this 16-year-old American Jewish tourist who was here on a wonderful summer program and suddenly fell gravely ill.
She needed to go safely to the place that would give her what she needed, and she needed a new liver.
Columbia Presbyterian in New York City said that they would take her if they could get her there, and they would put her at the top of the donor list for a liver.
So then the race began to get her to New York.
Jessa, with a team from Hadassah consisting of a liver physician, myself, an anesthesiologist, and a nurse, we had to set up an intensive care bed inside the middle of an El Al commercial flight.
It was amazing. They landed at Kennedy and I got a telephone call from one of the Hadassah doctors saying we've landed. I got another call an hour later saying we're leaving the airport, tell your sister to wait in this place in the hospital.
We had to go through the entire JFK airport with an intubated patient. And then we transported her through the streets of New York and to Columbia Presbyterian. We stopped the stretcher just at the entrance of the intensive care unit, and the parents came over, they hugged her, they kissed her.
One of the Israeli doctors said, do you want to give her a kiss? Do you want to give her a hug? And I said, absolutely. I mean, I didn't know that they would stop and let me do that. I just thought everything had to be so quick.
And then we went in.
About 2 or 3 weeks later, she was out of the hospital in New York. I mean, it's just a miracle. As the Hadassah doctors explained to us, people come to emergency rooms in very different conditions, and she was as close to death as you can be and still be alive.
A year after her surgery, really, if you met her, you would never know, which is just incredible.
I wish I could have met the doctors consciously, and I wanted to thank them for everything they did for me.
We still have the pillow from Hadassah Hospital. Jessa has kept that. It was kind of like a good luck charm.
We have a long Hadassah connection. Charlotte Jacobson is a cousin of my mother's. So Hadassah's always been an important part of our lives, and both my ex-wife and I were young Judean Madruchim. A very precious member of our family was about to lose her life, and to have it saved by Hadassah, you just don't know when you do good deeds in this world how it's going to come around and find you, reach you, give you its benefits.
I've always loved being Jewish, and I've always loved Israel, and now it's like I said, it's like 100-fold.
She recently celebrated her 17th birthday, and we weren't sure we were going to see that day. It's just a miracle.
I mean, I will always have gratitude and thanks toward this hospital. It's definitely an important place in my heart and for a lot of people.